Anyways, welcome everybody. I forgot to hit record, but I just read a little bit of an intro to a book, 4,000 Years of Christmas, A Gift from the Ages by Earl W. Count and Alice Lawson Count. It's a little bit about the history of the origins of Christmas or the pagan elements that seeped in to Christianity. I kind of put it up to the vote for the panel here and kind of settled on let's settle on something that's going on around the season so we have a little ammunition to how to explain things to our friends who are still practitioners and are unaware. So don't worry, I'll probably be doing a reading solo of this, but if you guys like this, maybe I'll do it with other book excerpts because try to change up the content as it were. Again, welcome everybody. We're the authors born again believers in Christ. I am not quite sure. Faith, hope, love. I might find an abbreviation for you. All right. Now we're going to start reading the prologue. Any questions thus far?
Nope.
Nope. All right. Let me get a little drink. All right. This is one of the world's greatest stories. We do not know its beginning, and it has not yet ended. Much of the story is not known. For instance, we do not really know when Christ's child venerates was born, or the time and place when Christmas was first celebrated, or exactly how it was that over the centuries a bishop saint of Asia Minor and a pagan god of the Germans merged into becoming the Santa Claus. Although Christmas story centers in the Christ child of Bethlehem, it begins so long before his coming that we find its hero arriving on the scene after more than half of the time of the story has gone by. Now, this is why I think this is important for us to understand the anthropology, because if this has been occurring for almost, 2,000, 4,000 years prior to Christ, right? And we are still practicing this behooves us to start asking the question, well, who was the original guy that they were worshiping? Well, does it really matter? Yeah, I think it does. Because otherwise, it's like, okay, so one day it was just Baphomet, but now it's just the Easter Bunny. I don't really care what the difference is here. I mean, it's no longer the Baphomet. Now it's a cute bunny rabbit. I mean, what's the problem here? Right? And so we start making exceptions and we delude the um, the incessant urgency that we need to be on top of this because, okay, are you implying that there might be a doppelganger? What do you mean? Again, I think there is because you get all the other stories. What about this crucified Savior or this thing? Or this guy shares the same birthday as Christ. Now, as I've theorized before in other episodes, I highly suspect that the angels, before they were cast out of heaven, they don't know the grand scheme of what's about to happen. But they might have had a little bit of a sneak peek at some blueprints before they were cast out, not really knowing how the final plans are going to go down, but they have some elements there. All right, it's going to be a savior figure, light of the world, yada, yada, yada. Okay, his word is going to be important. I guess we could say magic because, miracles, magic. What's the difference? Okay, so how are we going to do this? Well, do we have any volunteers down there to act as our vessels? You mean like emissaries? Yeah. What about this Nimrod guy? I don't know. What do you think? I don't know. He doesn't seem to like God, but it's right. And then you start getting a little bit into this. It's like, okay, this now would explain how Nimrod might have technology and the incentive to go to war against heaven and to build a tower, right? I don't know. But as I said before, when you start looking into Cupid and some depictions of Baby Tammuz is holding a Caduceus staff and
Mm.
a bow. A bow, you say, like Cupid. Huh. And again, this starts then getting into the Valentine's thing. It's like, well, they look very similar. Is there a possibility that some of this deity telephone, right? And as well, this is where you can start mixing some of the mythos of the fallen angels, right, with Babel characters. It says, oh, yeah, I'm their avatar. So by extension, if they are living inside me in their thinking, demonic possession, I'm become part of their legacy, right? In the legends that we tell that go shaping off of this. Do you follow what I'm saying? So when you're talking about all these ancient tales, it's like, okay, like I was doing my English class in a community college, and the professor was talking about how was it the Iliad is kind of like a reboot of the Aeneid, or is it the Aeneid, the reboot of the Iliad? Anyways, I basically said so. Originally, it was Greek, but then Rome came along and says we kind of want to reboot this, but say it's one of ours. And I literally raised my hand. I said, so it's kind of like the spaghetti Western equivalent of the ancient world, where they had the concept of, oh, this is a Western, but now we want to do it in our own light. So it's like a reboot. And he looks at me and he goes, exactly. That's probably the best analogy I've ever heard. And this is how, again, when you're looking at these stories, that's how I start seeing it. So we start seeing, okay, Nimrod dies. Great. Everybody's freaking out. What are we going to do? Uh, his wife, I'm pregnant. I don't even know if it's Nimrod's kid. I know, I'll tell them that Nimrod is going through me again, right? Reborn, rebirthed. And when I give birth to him, that will be Nimrod reborn. Regeneration,
Oh,
reincarnation. God of Osiris, right? He comes from the underworld and he's going to give new life to everybody. And thus the mythos begins. Now, again, Tammuz eventually dies, but the story continues to live on in people, and you have the stories of the women weeping for Tammuz, as we read about in Ezekiel,
mm,
right? And you still have the
mm.
Christmas trees going on by the time we get to Jeremiah, so on and
Wow.
so forth. So the story still perpetuates and continues through the pagan rituals, but we've kind of lost, oh, what exactly were they worshiping? Because we don't really know. We just read about, oh, look, they fell away. They worshiped a stupid wooden idol or whatever, but we don't really understand what it meant to the ancient world. Questions? Oh,
So
yes.
what is the significance then of the Christmas tree from then to now? Is that just signifying the rebirth of Nimrod, or were they actually using it as like a significance of like an idol worship of back then?
So again, I'm piecing together some stuff that I've gotten from Gary Wayne, some other guy. I think his name is Rick something, and then Michael Heiser. Now, while they are pushing away the idea, Christmas trees are totally fine. I don't understand what everybody's problem is with this. I'm over here going no, because as you see here, and again, I'm reading some of the stuff that they're writing. I'm like, I don't think you pieced this together. The giants used to hang out around the uh was it the trees of Bashan, wherever the cedars were that helped build the second temple of Solomon. That is allegedly where a lot of them hung out. And again, when you read about the groves unto Ashtaroth and Baal, Baal being Tammuz, Nimrod reborn, and Ashtaroth being his wife, um, you always read about they're in the groves and high places. Groves, again, affiliated with trees. So when the Nephilim died in the flood, it is said that their spirits were then imbued in the trees, and the trees actually breathe life, right? They give us oxygen. So again, Hollywood, they have this whole concept where the spirits are actually trapped within the trees, right? Burning their spirits or the wood, the thing that holds their essence, right, is something that's giving me warmth. Therefore, I will make sacrifices to it, right? There's a little, again, I don't have 100%, but I think we can kind of piece together. Yeah, that would make sense because now you're going to say, okay, so if your spirit is in here, thank you for doing that for me, right? It's just like the concept of this is my body, this is my flesh. Pagan equivalent, it's the same kind of thinking. Well, if this is what's giving me rain, right? If I want rain to happen again, I have to do a ceremony in order to prompt that to be recycled back towards me. So I think in the occult, just like it is today in modern Hollywood, you either have to, again, this is why I'm a little bit angry when I see these ladies that just write these random comments saying they're all trans in Hollywood. No, they're not. There's a good chunk of them that are. However, the way it's offered is, hey, just like with Christ, you have to give us your firstborn son, right? Firstborn kid. And they either have to go and become transgender, like Tammuz, allegedly he castrated himself. Yeah. Or, right, you're either going to become trans, or we're going to have an accident where they die. Sylvester Stallone is immediately first person I was thinking of because he's got three daughters, but he gave up his kid. Allegedly. But again, if you're looking at the occult, it's Kobe Bryant. I think his oldest daughter died with him in that helicopter crash. Maybe there's an arrangement again where we've secured your family, but we need to have a celebrity sacrifice this year, and you happen to be on the docket. Same thing with what's his name? Heath Ledger. We need a celebrity sacrifice this year. You happen to be on the docket. Same thing with Whitney Houston.
John
Same.
Travolta.
Huh?
John
Travolta.
Travolta.
With his wife? Is
His
that what you're?
son,
His
his
son.
son, firstborn son died.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Hmm.
So again, you could say it's a coincidence. You're kind of reaching here, but I'm like that does make sense. And as well, now we look at the story of Abraham. I want you to sacrifice your firstborn son.
Mm.
But why? I thought like I've been waiting forever. I thought this was the. Why would I do that? Don't ask questions. Just do it. Why is God doing this? Because in the call, if I give up my firstborn son, I'm going to get a ticket into the afterlife for me, right? I've put my own flesh, my own seed in the game, right? A blood sacrifice. So therefore, this will grant me a place on the belt of Orion. Again, stars of Hollywood. When you look at the pyramids, they're aligned with the, I can't remember which one it is. It's aligned with something up there in the space.
Wow, I
But
didn't know
yeah,
that.
and again, I highly suspect that might be Nimrod, Semiramis, and Tammuz in the pyramids. That's just me, but I'm speculating here.
Mm.
But again, it would explain as well with the what we have on our money.
Mm.
And again, Solomon, Sol, son, O of Mon, moon. Knights Templar were known as guardians of the Temple of Solomon, guardians of the Temple of the Sun and Moon. I remember he fell away to worship other pagan wives. And again, allegedly, if Hermes, Nimrod's son, Tammuz, was the originator of coinage, in the very least creating a medallion, gold represented the sun, silver represented the moon, mother and father. You are the sun to my moon. That's where that
Mm.
terminology comes from. Yin and yang. Yeah. So they're starting to create themselves as saying, I'm now part of the astral realm, astronaut,
Mm.
Ashtaroth. Ashtaroth. Again, you can Google this right now if you want. You will find it is the sigil of Ashtaroth is connecting with a pagan red star, right? With witchcraft. So I'm over here going, are you telling me that Nimrod's wife was the first witch? Again, no, but you start looking into some of these things. So, anyways, so what I'm highly suspecting is the Nephilim died in the flood, right? And this is why, in a sense, baptism. I'm not sure you guys saw that last episode. Baptism is almost a sense of saying, I want the old man to die. I want it to die in the deluge. Why? Because the Ark of the Covenant, Noah's Ark, right? The dove that comes down, the dove that comes to the ark to let us know where dry land is, our refuge, right? That is what I'm looking to. That is the covenant. That's the Holy Spirit that I want to encompass me and save me through the storm that's about to come. The old man is going to is going to die in the flood. And again, I find this interesting is that you would think that with the purge, right, he's going to burn next time it's going to be with fire. He's burning the harvest, right? So this rejuvenates the earth, right? As every 6 years, and then you have the year of Jubilee, but they wouldn't till the land, they wouldn't harvest the land. They would actually plow it over and burn all of the scrap that was left over, because this would actually purify the harvest for the upcoming year, renew the soil, if you will. I find there's a little bit of a similarity there. So what I think these entities are possibly believing in, because I don't have 100% proof, if I want to be indwelled with a demon spirit, right? I want that spirit, Holy Spirit. We want Holy Spirit. They want a demonic spirit. This is why we see all these contracts and MK Ultra stuff of these Hollywood celebrities, right? They're a little bit, or when we read about that story with Paul, I think Paul and Barnabas, when they're going through the town, they called Paul, I think it was Hermes, and they
Yeah.
referred to the other one as some other god. I can't remember, but I was reading it like, oh my gosh,
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
yeah. So when that popped out at me, I was going, interesting, right?
Oh,
Um, but they're confronted by that woman that was possessed, and then she was able to be semi-psychic. And then they cast out that demon from her, and then the
uh-huh.
master got mad, saying, "What'd you do? You just got rid of the thing that gave me prophetess." So, in order to be indwelled with these spirits, these things that give you entities and boosts, you might say, you have to make a sacrifice. You have to put a skin in the game, right? And you'll get fame, fortune, and whatnot.
Mhm.
In order to do this, what happens? Well, I want to become like the gods. What are you talking about? The sons of God came down and had affairs with daughters of men. Genesis 6:4, Enoch 6, sons of God. You read in Job, talks about the sons of God approaching the throne, right? Allegedly, that might be angels. Well, is it possible? And that's why they would put a star on top of the tree. If I'm already following what your children are doing, eventually I want to become like a god, an angel.
Mm.
That's what I'm striving for. So this regeneration, reincarnation concept, that's what I'm putting my faith in. And ironically enough, it has something to do with a tree. One was hung on a tree, the other one hangs ornaments on the tree. Does that make a little bit more sense?
Wow.
I know that was a lot,
Yeah,
but I'm just
that was
trying
a
to
lot.
like pick out all these things and try to give you perspective. Like this is all throughout the Bible. It's not
Yeah.
just something random. And I have
Yeah.
a well, again, why would you call it Hollywood?
Mhm.
The sorcerers I found is in Acts 13, verse 6. And I think it's Bar Jesus. I don't think I'm pronouncing that correctly.
As the pagan deity?
Mm-hmm. Or the false prophetess, false prophet, or
Uh,
the sorcerer. Oh no,
Elemis.
Elamias, the sorcerer.
Hold on. Elemis,
Yeah.
also known as Bar Jesus, is a figure described in Acts of the Apostles 13, where he is referred to as a maga, magician,
Mm.
which the King James Version is a sorcerer or a false prophet. um, oh yeah, that was another thing I was reading. I might read this next time if we have time one more time. Talking about MAGA and the wise men.
Oh yeah.
Oh boy, I had it's like
Nice.
6 8 pages. I'm like I've learned so much more about the wise men in 6 to 8 pages than I have in
Ooh.
2 decades of going to a church.
Oh
And
my gosh.
I think I did that. I can't remember the name of the title, but I did do an episode on that. The MAGA Magi and something, I think is what I titled it. It's still up on YouTube. I might repost because of this season. Anyways, any other questions?
Um, Brandon, I just wanted to clarify when you said Tammuz, is that the same as Baal and Hermes? Are those all referring to the same person?
Yes. Now people are going to argue with me, and I chuckle because one guy he wrote this on a thing on YouTube, and I was like, no, I'm pretty certain it's this one, and then I outlined it was almost like 3 4 paragraphs because I
Uh-huh.
understand when you're making these claims to people who are geeks in the ancient world, they're going to be like, no, you're wrong, and I'm like,
Okay.
no, I've been doing my due diligence. Mithra, Sol Invictus, Baphomet, Baal, was a couple other ones. That's the core. Hermes, that's Tammuz, all the same guy, right? And
Mithra
I
is the
also
same.
they're all the same.
Mithra?
They're all the
Oh,
same.
wow.
And again, somebody's going to say no, they're not. But when I'm
Okay.
looking at the ceremonies of Mithraism, you could say is the forefathers of Freemasonry.
Okay.
Sol Invictus is more the basis of how we interfused into Christianity. That's Catholicism. And they've
Okay.
even admitted to it in some Catholic website talking about the winter solstice and that connecting with with December 25th.
Mm.
Yeah. So
Okay.
that's them. So yes, it
Okay.
basically I'm looking into a lot of the rituals and the belief systems and what the Masons will do. And then again, I've been talking to some, they're giving a lot of literature. But again, it doesn't mean when you're in the first level, the second level, the third level. It's not until you start getting higher and higher up. And if you've actually been investing with the literature and giving a report about what you're reading, or over you're gauging, can we tell you the greater mysteries without you freaking out? Of yeah, we're talking about Satanism. We just don't want you to catch on
Yeah,
with that
yeah.
because there was
Right.
actually a Mason at my former job that said you might want to look into the name Tammuz. And oh boy, did he set me on
Wow.
a rabbit trail. He gave me a name, and I started going, and
Wow.
yeah, one thing led to another. I was like, he's mentioned in the Bible. He's like, mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, so if he's mentioned in the Bible, what else is out there? And
Oh,
again, as I read all these other books, I think the clinch for me um was Bloody Zion by Edward Hendry. I can't remember what chapter. It's towards the end. But he connected Hermes with Tammuz,
okay.
and that one was very enlightening for me.
Wow.
Because again, did I? let me look up the name if it'll pop up in my photos, because sometimes my thing, like I'll type in a word for photos and then it won't show me what I have, and it makes me very angry. But I did a name etymology breakdown. Again, this was my own. I just said what, like breaking down Hermes and Sumerian. Now, again, this is if it will load.
Mhm.
Um, I did like what does her mean in Sumerian and what does mes mean in
Mhm.
Sumerian. Roughly, this is what it came out to meaning. His Highness, the hero of divine ordinances of eternal youth.
Oh.
Again,
Oh.
right above that, and when I'm showing the slide, I have another thing going. We will be like gods,
Oh.
AI.
Oh.
Now you had the city of AI that was connected with the Nephilim when they were conquering Canaan land, right? I typed this in the other day because Satan is the power and the prince of the airways, right? I typed in like the I, and again, I'm doing that for
Mhm.
referential purposes. And then I typed in R, so AIR, and they said this might be a typo, blah, 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 blah. But they basically said it could connect with basically an etymology abbreviation for Osiris.
Mm.
And the other version was like the left eye or the right eye. And I was going black and white, like in Freemasonry. Yeah, it kind of just shattered my whole. Again, I'm prepping another one on usury for my next presentation. Um, I thought I heard a baboop, so I wasn't sure if I got a message. But yeah, that was definitely something that made me go, okay, this like I already have hunches. A lot of times I'll be speculating and then I'll cross-reference the hunch and something will pop up like that.
Mm.
Did that answer your question, Renee?
Yes, it does. Thank you. And then the creepy mom is Semiramis and also Ashtaroth. And what's another name?
Deified. Astrate.
Oh,
AS
Ash.
Trate.
Oh, okay.
Ishtar. Babylonian Ishtar gates.
Oh,
That's her as
oh,
well.
Ishtar. Yeah, yeah.
Cybele. Cibele.
Oh,
She's
okay.
she's another spiked crown deity person. Something that I've noticed is it's either deity telephone or they merge the deity over time.
Oh,
So again,
okay.
as because what the Romans used to do, like when Hannibal was whacking Rome, they basically said, okay, if our gods aren't going to listen to us, we will literally start worshiping the Carthaginians, which came from Canaan, by the way. They just started
Mm,
migrating across the Mediterranean. We will worship theirs, which is Baal. We will worship their
okay.
gods if you let us win. And eventually they do after a period of time, and they started incorporating them into the Roman pantheon. As well, they were notorious, the Romans, for plagiarizing the Greeks. So uh, Mercury was an equivalent of Hermes, and then so on and so forth. Hermes connects with Tammuz, Tammuz connecting with Dumazid, a Sumerian goat
Mm,
shepherd god. And again, goat, I was like, okay, so could that be Baphomet? Baphomet's affiliated, which again, a novice will say, as above, so below, as the universe, so the soul. Now, granted, we just see the Baphomet doing the finger thing upward, finger thing downward. We're like, oh, Satan, woo! No, as the universe, so the soul. That's a quote from Hermes Trismegistus, and it comes off of the Emerald Tablets. The Emerald Tablets, which were chiseled on two twin towers
mm.
that was preserving all the knowledge from pre-Diluvian world. Huh. So that was before the flood, basically. And allegedly, I think it was Lamech, if I'm reading correctly, with a lot of Gary Wayne stuff. He was the one that basically, while Noah was over here making the ark, he was over here chiseling all the information that I want the next generation to remember after the flood. Yeah. So again,
Wow.
when I'm seeing the Twin Towers and I'm saying that's coronation day for an Antichrist, why?
Uh-huh.
Well, again, it's affiliated with trade. Hermes was known as the
Oh,
god of trade. We were having a trade war with a guy doing what? Tariffs. Now,
wow.
again, I can't recommend enough. If you buy the book, The First 5,000 Years of Debt by David Graeber, Graeber, not a Christian. However, when
Okay.
you start looking at the concept of death, life, and what that all represents in the ancient world to present,
Mm,
You're not going to see money the same way. And as well as a Christian, if you're reading it, you're going to look at salvation in an entirely different light. And you will understand the beast system because this thing, again, for me as a Christian reading it, going, this just makes so much sense. Especially if you're thinking in material versus we're thinking spiritual. We want spiritual. Again, we don't care about those who kill the body. Whereas the other ones are saying, I want to like download my spirit or my being, my entity, my data into a cloud. Right?
Mm.
That's what the occult is pushing with transhumanism and whatnot.
Mhm.
Whereas Christianity is over here going, I don't want that. I just want
Mhm.
to submit back to what was during the Garden of Eden. Right? Order out of chaos is what they want. So they want chaos. Whereas what are we doing? We're Peter looking to the only order amidst the storm, and we're walking towards Christ. We are
Mhm.
following the word. That's how we walk on the water.
Mm.
We're not looking for the chaos. Again, when
Mhm.
we look at the chaos, we start sinking. If we look at Christ, we know how to walk and navigate through all the storms.
Yeah.
Um, pa, 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 pa. The Freemasons are the most ancient of all cults, many different lodges all over the world. Their symbols all point towards light, but it's a false light for everything in substance. And yes, that is correct. Again, hence Illuminati. Any other questions? Look, you had like one more in connection with that. And oh, the other theory. Semiramis was either his twin or it was his mom.
Well,
Now, I lean towards mom, and the reason I say that is because they based the Back to the Future movies on a lot of Nimrod
oh, so
stuff,
creepy.
and so again, the whole concept. My mom's attracted to me. I'm beginning to really wonder
Wow.
where that came from. Twin pines, again, two trees. Yeah, they show us a lot of
Wow.
Biff
Wow.
Tannen. I think I did the episode Tannenbaum Trump. You guys want
Hmm.
to watch that, connecting with a lot of this stuff with Trump. Biff Tannen was based on Donald Trump. And that you can get IMDb that. The writers have confirmed. Yes, it has been. Um,
Wow.
and I was looking into Biff, Hiram of Biff, which allegedly he was the guy that was the architect for King Solomon's temple, and he refused to give up the secrets. Again, this is one of the rituals when you first get into the lodge, and they're doing all this creepy stuff like, tell us the secrets. I will not. And it's supposed to be a little bit of a nod to Masons. Do not tell the secrets of how we do the things we do. So they kill you and they drop you in a little blankie and then they cart you off. It's a ritual. They don't really kill you. They're just going through the, oh, okay, that's what's going to happen, blah, blah, because we're
Oh,
remembering Hiram Abiff.
okay.
Now, Hiram Abiff, Biff Tannen. Tannen means a conifer yew tree. Tannen. Oh, Tannenbaum, oh, Tannenbaum, the Christmas song that you get from Germany. Worshipping the tree. Now, what happened? Well, allegedly, when Nimrod died, his blood fell upon a conifer yew tree. And this blood, right, dripped towards the ground. And this is where we get the gift of new life, the roots, the rebirth of his son, Tammuz. So, gifts under the tree. Some have equated the tree as well to be representing of Nimrod's phallus, because in a sense, that was the thing that rebirthed this whole thing into. And the wreaths that you put on your window, that's supposed to represent the vajayjay.
Eesh.
So again, I'm sitting in my church foyer going,
I
I want
know,
to burn it. I want to burn it.
but
Like, do they understand how nasty
creepy.
like
Yeah.
the symbol imagery here? And when you were talking about equivalence to Ashtaroth, I went downstairs to the church and I was getting a glass of juice. My throat was so parched. And it was roughly like last week of March, first week of April. And I looked on the fridge door and it says we're going breakfast for like the or was that pancakes for Master Club. Sorry. Pancakes for Master Clubs for Easter. And I'm like, Ishtar? I'm not reading Easter. I'm
Oh,
saying
Easter, right? Easter.
Ishtar. And I'm thinking of the thing in Jeremiah saying where they made cakes unto Ashtaroth. I'm like, we're still doing it, man. We're
Wow.
still doing it. It's all this time later. We're still doing
Yeah.
cakes. And again, not to say that pancakes are evil because people all jump on me. They're like, oh,
Get it?
no, but it's the concept that we're still
Yeah.
keeping a ritual practice
Yeah.
and we're affiliating it with the holiday. right? It's like we're no better than them. So again, this is what to go in with Faith Hope said. When Christ is constantly condemning, you guys are doing the traditions of men. The Hebrew
Hmm.
word for traditions is Kabbalah, right? And I have a have a book here, 500 Beautiful Words, and Cabal connects with Kabbalah, by the way. That was interesting
Okay.
that I found. But Albert Pike said in Morals and Dogma, quote, Freemasonry is the search for light, Illuminati, as you will see, leads us directly to the Kabbalah. Okay, so Kabbalah means we're connecting to traditions. And then you look at the Hermetic Kabbalah tree of life. Again, going back to what he was saying earlier, you have at the very top Corona or Kether, spiked crown. And at the
Okay.
very base, it's either Malkuth, Mars, the 666 hand mudra sign, or X. Now, who happens to have everything named X these days? Yeah, that is interesting. That is very interesting.
Mm.
And affiliated with 666 and Mars, Mars, the god of war. But Corona, the Antichrist in Revelation 6:2, he is given a crown. One of the early, again, I was careful calling who to call father, but one of the early church fathers, I think it was Irenaeus or Tertullian, they were talking about a soldier who was receiving a wreath and he was refusing it, saying there is no one worthy of wearing a crown but Christ. And he wrote his little dissertation in relation to this, acknowledging that the soldier was doing it right. And he basically, to paraphrase, says, we should not be wearing the corona. It is the devil's mark on their foreheads. Oh, well, that would have been good to know. Hindsight 2020, pun intended. But yeah, that was again.
Oh.
So that's what I'm highly suspecting with the jibbity jabs.
Yeah, yeah.
They're trying to inject getting against serpent seed. They're trying to get their kids to come back, but they need vessels that are going to be offering themselves up for this. I think this is one in two parts. Unfortunately, unless you detox and you pray about it, again, the only things I would say is going to help you, personally speaking. That they're going to have World War III, allegedly. Nukes go off, allegedly. At least that's what they're going to tell us. And they're actually going to amp up the 5G towers.
Mm.
5G could be pentagram. Penta means
Uh,
5G, God,
oh,
gram.
wow.
Amp those
Okay.
up, right? And everybody starts coming out with radiation, right? Because of the nukes. It's in the air. Yeah.
Mm.
But we have a solution. It's an AI jib jab this time, though. But if you get it, it will cure it. And I've already been seeing posts on this. This is an actual thing to cure radiation issues. So now everybody who got the thing in them, they just amp that up. Well, I want to get the cure because if I don't, I die. Or they're going to phrase it, you're going to be a threat to society and we need to neutralize you because
Ugh.
they could say radiation slash bioweapon warfare. If you get too close to somebody, it'll be like leprosy and you'll cause the spread. So if you don't do this, we're going to cause the issue to continue to accelerate. So either accept this, but those who get it, right, it's going to be one in two parts. Cool. I'm cured. Miracles, wines, and signs and wonders, right? If I don't, I die or I'm rejected from medical care.
Yeah.
That's my theory, but it would make a lot of sense, again, how the nations are deceived by the merchants and their pharmakia.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, up, up, up,
Oh.
ha. Based on the research I've done, Zoom was created in order to train the AI on quantum computing. They're building out data centers right now, and the AI governs whole new concept of digital twins. I don't know, but I'm curious. Yes, digital twins. You could say even Gemini. Gemini is equated to money. Juno
Mm.
M O Monetary. Monetary. Juno Monetary.
Monetary.
Yeah, it connects with something with again Tammuz in a mint that was near the Vatican
Mm.
back in the day. And I've done episodes on some of this stuff, but it's been 6 to 8 months, maybe more. But I know there's something connected with that. That's why I think when they have a financial crash at some point, I highly suspect it would be either in May or in June. Might be June because again, Trump's birthday. He's
Oh,
born in the month of Tammuz. If you're going off the 13-month calendar
oh my
cycle,
gosh.
he's also the exchequer of the
Crazy.
Vatican and the world banks.
Oh,
Right? So you see what I'm saying? It's like for me, it's like okay, he has name etymology to a Nimrod-like character, Tammuz, reborn. Right? He's affiliating himself with Christ.
yeah.
He's connecting heavily, flirting with the Catholic Church, universal. So I don't know. Oh, and J6. You guys remember that from other episodes, or you want me to recycle one more time here?
What about about J6? What?
So I was doing some research, and J6 in Catholic tradition is allegedly the day that Christ was baptized by
Mm,
John the Baptist.
mm,
As an adolescent, it was allegedly the day that Christ was visited by the Magi, and the root word for Magi is MAGA.
mm.
So again, I'm seeing that, and what happened on J6, I'm just going, yeah, don't think that's a
Wow.
coincidence that yeah, that all of that went down exactly on the day that it did, because again, when you look into the dates for some of these things, it's like I don't think they're doing these things on coincidence. Because
Uh,
again, like Jeremiah says, do not be like the pagans who look to the stars or in awe and wonder of them. You want to say that's fallen angels, or they're looking to the zodiac and whatnot, or planning all of their stuff, right? But instead, look to me. Don't do divination of spirits of dead people and stuff like that. Look to me. It's really
mhm,
not that hard, but we constantly are complicating it. However, as Christians, we sit back and we look at, wow, can you believe it? They are still believing this crap. And it helps us with discernment that we're not going that route, but we understand this is how our enemies think. Well,
mhm,
Brandon, we shouldn't be even. No, we're supposed to be wise as serpents but gentle as doves, serpents. We have to understand how the devil thinks. Know the difference between good and evil? Doesn't mean I endorse it, does not mean I condone it, it does not mean I practice it or I approve of it, but I'm aware of it.
mhm,
And when I see something like that repeat, I can call it out and condemn it. I think that's something we're not teaching too much in Christianity because that's what we're supposed to do. So when we start seeing it infiltrating the church or the ecclesia, as I prefer to call it, we
mhm,
cast that out or we set it apart from our midst because that is not what we are supposed to be defined as Christians. This is, that people won't say, oh, see, that's what all you Christians do. No, it's not. And we actually condemn them wholeheartedly because
mhm.
that you're absolutely correct. The Bible actually does side with you on that. Yeah. I'm not even a Christian. The Bible agrees with me.
Mhm,
Surprisingly, a lot of times it will. Not in all areas, granted, but it's over here where you can again get your foot in the door and say, "Yeah, where God does agree with you, wouldn't you want to keep on pursuing that?" Yeah, because I want God to agree with me if there is such a thing, right?
mhm,
I think that would be a better way. And then as well, they start looking at your testimony and then convince, convict, convert. That is what gets them going because they're going, okay, so it's really not that bad, and other people can do this. So I'm
mhm.
not alone. I'm not isolated in this. That's the beauty of being in the body of Christ
Yes.
and the conviction of the Holy Spirit and having discernment. Dis, set apart. Cern, horned one. Ment, mind. Set
Mm.
apart the horned one from your mind. Anyways, I'm going into rant mode, but this is what I love doing. Hopefully, you guys are keeping up. I do feel bad because sometimes I know I'm going in so many directions. Is everybody keeping up? Cross reference questions?
Good.
Okay. What were we even doing? I can't remember.
I don't know.
No. All right. Christmas is one of humankind's great experiences for more than 4,000 years, spreading over the earth. It has drawn the loyalties and longings of millions of people, growing always richer as humankind has matured. To what then shall we liken Christmas? It is like a seed that is planted within the soil. It springs upward and downward. Upward, it appears to the eye a very beautiful tree that is growing even while we stand and look at it. Downward pushes that part of a seed which becomes root. The roots branch and branch again. Sometimes they encounter a buried stone. They pass around it. becoming crooked and devious, yet they never halt. Sometimes they encounter new soil and thrust their way into it. Wherever they go, they draw from the soil what nourishments it offers. As they receive, so they transmit to the tree. What the soil gives, the tree becomes. Now, not to sound new agey, but if I could take a little side note, I was noticing at my last job that the upper management, they're treating everybody like dirt.
Mm.
I didn't like that. And a lot of times, especially if somebody can't speak with English or they don't know the law or they don't have the gift of articulation, I feel it's my need to simply stand up and say something. It's just I'm wired that way. I've always stood up for against the person being marginalized, the underdog, or being bullied. I can't help myself. And I basically walked away after that incident, and I thought, you know, you got to respect dirt because without it, you got nothing to stand on. Not to say that you're supposed to treat people like dirt, but it's the
Mhm.
concept that if you're in a position of power, you have to understand that people are looking up to you, right? And they're looking to you to lead. It does not mean that you demean them or you stamp all over them, because without them, I am nothing. So again, I'm just seeing a little bit of that when I was reading into the roots. I just,
Mhm.
anyways, uh, turn into the tree, soil gives, and the tree becomes. Okay. Or shall we liken Christmas to the web in a loom? There are many weavers who work into the pattern, the experience of their lives. When one generation goes, another comes to take up the weft that has been dropped. The pattern changes as the mind changes. It never begins quite anew. At first, we are not sure what we discern the pattern, but at last we see that unknown to the weavers themselves, something has taken shape before our eyes, and that we made something very beautiful, something which compels our understanding. Yet, to what we really liken anything that is living and growing and changing, except to itself. Let me move my sticker. When the last of our figures fail us, we are turned back into our its own history. The strange, indeed, is that history far beyond the imaginations of men and women. It will tell us as old the old Babylonian festival that moves westward, dividing its way as it comes through Greece into Rome as a festival that remodels itself at every step to fit the people among whom it settles, by another road into Israel, where at last it comes to rest beside the manger of Bethlehem, though not far long since it becomes part of the strength by which the faith of Christ conquered the entire pagan Mediterranean, and by yet another route the skirts the other two, through the Balkans and up to the Danube Valley. I might be mispronouncing that, apologize. Where, much disfigured and impoverished, it enters into the heathendom of the Northland. When last we shall view it, the Christian stream will now overtake in all others, and as the Northland full blown of Christmas festivals will have grown up as part of the very flesh and bone of Europe's many nations, and of those newer nations that have sprung up far beyond the seas. So the next one is mild blows the south wind. What was one thing I wanted to point out there? Stream overtaken. Uh, Anyways, there's something I saw there. Now I'm forgetting what it was. Oh, all right. There's another book. I'm trying to blank what the title is, but the guy's name is Felipe because of the W. Sorry, drawing a blank. It's in the other room. I'd have to go dig for it. But it was interesting. It's a very tedious read because he's a French author, and it's translated from the French into the English,
Mm.
and it's very. Ugh, but that's how when I'm reading, there eventually a paragraph will pop out, and I'll be like, okay, something of interest that I found here, and he was basically breaking down with his stuff how Catholicism, every time they would send a missionary forward, they would know, okay, they're following this particular deity. This deity has like a little
Mm.
avatar animal that's affiliated with them. So let's, not shake everything up too much. We'll just say we're going to call this a saint now, right? We're going to give it a
Mm.
Christian name, and this little
Mhm.
animal next to it, we're going to Christianize it. excuse me. And thus they were inducting in a lot of the pagan cultures because they're over here saying we're going to get a resistance if we basically destroy their idols. So what if we incorporate it and infuse it?
Okay.
Now, this I don't find as too much as a surprise because, again, Mystery Babylon, the Great Rome, basically, once it was done being an empire, they said, okay, before we conquered with the sword and we let people continue as they were, now we want to start converting with the religion, right? And religion's a lot easier in a sense because if you basically are saying just do as thou wilt, continue the practices, we'll just change the names here and there.
Mm-hmm.
You're basically bringing people back into the fold of Babel, ever so gradually. By what? Maintaining their traditions. Let them continue in their ways of Kabbalah. We'll just tell them it's this now, right? The narrative is whatever we pitch to them. Is that making sense? People tracking?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It basically when I'm reading this, I'm going, this is why I really don't like Jesuits, because I had a lady, she's Catholic, she's like, well, what's wrong with them? They're a Society of Jesus. They give donations and they do this and that. I'm like, you're not familiar with their oath of initiation, are you? Huh? No, you're not. But they have one thing where they're talking about taking the enemy baby's head and smashing it up against a brick wall. It's very nasty. It's very sick. And again, as a Christian, it's like, well, why would I ever endorse that? Why would I recite something like this? Right? But this is what they would do. They would send out these missionaries, and it doesn't necessarily mean missionary as in they were wearing their collars and whatnot. They could sometimes been travelers. They could have been poets. They could have been historians, school teachers, right? Any way that you can start infiltrating the culture by telling them you're the good guy, and in actuality, you're subverting their cultural subversion, as Yuri Bezmenov was referring to in the 1980s. He was a Soviet spy and basically was talking about how we're infiltrating America by doing this, that, and the other thing. So we're normalizing it and we're diluting the concept of what you guys stood for by telling you that this is actually better for you. And that was via feminism. That was via, so on and so forth. Questions?
Yeah.
Are we good? Do you want me to read
We're
one more
good.
chapter?
So interesting.
I love this topic. I just want to make sure I'm not over talking or going too long because I do understand I go really fast and there's a lot that I'm covering all at once. So I just want to make sure I'm pausing accordingly. All right, eastward of the Atlantic Ocean, there is a sea whose waters are very blue under high white clouds. The lands facing it smile at the sun and bring forth oranges, lemons, pomegranates, figs, and dates. To the north, a great mountain rampart shuts them away from a darker country, where the summer's heat soon flies before the galloping cold. In all the rest of the world, there is no sea like the Mediterranean Sea, around this body of water, and in the Tigris and Euphrates valleys to the east. Many kinds of people have worked, played, thought, battled, and sung as nowhere else. These humankind first turned grass into grains there too. Perhaps the first animals to carry loads and feed us their flesh were made tame. Their metals first became tools, weapons, their ships and cities, and governments were invented. Not too fond of governments, and again, that's just I find this stuff fascinating. Uh, there are the dark, clear eyes of priests first read the stately tale of the stars and set forth on the greatest of all voyages of discovery to seek the spirit who made the universe, very new agey, who made the earth within the universe, who created the minds and bodies of the people upon the earth. Here was born 2,000 years ago a boy whose mother was a peasant, and whose cradle, says the story, was the feeding trough of cattle. The story tells of some Judean shepherds who beheld a wonderful vision deep in the night, and who arrived soon after the first Christmas gift. It was lowly and perfect. They had nothing to offer him but their hearts in worship. The story says, further, that some of those clear-eyed priests read in the stars of the infant and journeyed perilously to offer him gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Thus began a procession of men, women, children, lowly and noble, Over 1,500 years, they have brought to this child the one marvelous varied gift of Christmas. The sunny lands around the deep blue waters of the Mediterranean have contributed their gilded domes and colored pillars and have made them into churches. To him, they have given the garlands, which is crowns, or the wreaths that a Roman emperor would wear, and bows, uh, with which they once celebrated other gods. There was another wise man who did not arrive from the east, but from the north. This wise man came late from the land of the swift summer, and long, slow winter, from the endless forest of fir and spruce and juniper and oak. As we shall see, he came only after the mild south wind had brought him its passage. Perhaps that is why he could not be included in the New Testament story, which closed centuries before he arrived. Probably the wise man of the East would not have thought him rich or even wise. In their day, he would have seemed even more uncouth and barbaric than the shepherds who had reached their manger first. But, in time, the other wise man, too, was brought to worship to the manger. Gifts of stone flung high into space, in the slender shapes of solemn pointed arches, and of gloss colored to stain and light of the sun, like the shepherd of Judea and the peasant of Italy. He has brought the gift of simple songs, songs that tramp the snowy streets on the silent holy night, and enter into the house and hall. Hold on, sticky note. And lowly of vaulting stone and glowing window glass. The wise man of the north added also his old Yuletide, the boar's head, which he took away from the feast of his old heathen god Frey, his Yule log of Britain and Germany. He commissioned St. Nicholas, his master of ceremonies. He made the Christmas tree and set it up beside the manger. The other wise men, with their gold, frankincense, and myrrh, might not have thought much of these gifts, but they had left before the man of the Northland arrived. This man, who was slow and a painful thinker, who took a long time to become wise, conceived his gift over many centuries. Today we regard this gift as no less worthy than the treasure of the Magi. We know this gift as our own. For the wise men of the north, he is the people of the northern Europe, many of his own blood. And all of us, whatever our blood, have come into his heritage. Dark and true and tender in the north, to the Mediterranean birthday of the Galilean peasant, and Northland brought the gifts of its forests and meadow. Now, I found something interesting when they're talking about the boar's head. Tammuz was allegedly killed and gored to death by a wild boar. Very similar to Game of Thrones, if you're familiar with King Robert Baratheon. I was going, that's very interesting, and this is allegedly where we eat ham, and this is where we get Ash Wednesday from in the mark of Tammuz on one's forehead if you are Catholic. To this day. Yeah. Kind of crazy. But as well, I highly suspect because hermaphrodite, whether they did something to him in his youth and they were trying to raise him that way, whether if you're going by the story of Nimrod, allegedly it was one of Noah's sons, Seth, the one that begins with the S. Is it Seth?
Shem,
Japheth?
Shem,
And Shem. Sorry,
Ham.
Shem. Sorry, Shem. Allegedly Shem got ticked off after a certain time with Nimrod, and he went over and basically was like, "We're done, little nephew," and cut him up. And cut him
Oh,
into 12, 13 pieces. And he dropped his body parts all over the freaking empire because he never wanted to be assembled again. And allegedly, he dropped his phallus into the Nile River. Now, allegedly, Ashtaroth, his wife, went about and actually found most of his body parts, and what she could not find, she made of clay
oh,
to reassemble him.
golly.
One of his if I can't remember correctly, but this is where Baalbek, is it Syria? It's a coastal area, like right north of Israel. That has connections with this. Anyways, I found it
Mm.
interesting. Baalbek connecting with Baal. Um, and I highly suspect That Tammuz was basically raised to you have to go take out your uncle because what he did to your father, blah 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 blah. You should go forth and do likewise to him. Now I don't know, but I this is all theory speculation. I think he did go forth and killed his uncle. I think he might have actually cut off his phallus. That's just my hunch with what I've been reading. And I think in turn, Shem had one last thing in him, and he actually got Tammuz in his eye. Whether or not that's true, but part of the reason I suspect that is we have Odin with the one eye, we have the all seeing eye. There's something with an eye affiliated
Yeah.
with a mystical creature, right? You're always,
Mhm.
again, whether true or not, we won't find out till we get up there. But this, again, reading
Mhm.
mythos, trying to piece together a lot of varying stories. And again, we have like 3,000, 4,000 years of detective work here to sift. This is just my
Yeah.
hypothesis of what potentially could have happened and went down. But
Mhm.
Wasn't Odin's symbol a boar?
I think it's ravens. If I'm not
Ravens.
mistaken, I'm not. We can
Apologies.
look up. We can look it up. Why not? We got nothing
I
better
had,
to do.
I had an ex who was really into Norse mythology, would even write like the runes alphabet. Yeah, that's why he's an ex.
Two ravens, Hujan and Munin, who represented his thought and his memory. While
Oh,
boars are
intelligence.
also associated with him, his boar Gullin Burstai, or his wolves Jerry and Frecky. And I'm probably butchering the pronunciations, and I apologize for any diehard people who follow this stuff. The ravens are his most consistent and well-known symbols.
Okay.
That's just if I'm remembering that
Mm.
correctly. Yeah, the ravens as well are affiliated frequently with Apollo,
Mm.
sun god. Again, stuff I just find interesting. Um, The rising sun goes west. A very old legend in the Near East says that far away in the mountains of northern Mesopotamia, there is a land of Eden, in which the
Mm.
waters under the earth well up and pour out as four great rivers. These diverge and feed life to all the parched world around it. What the land of Eden and its waters were to all the earth, the land of the Tigris and the Euphrates, has been to our own way of life. Mesopotamia is the very ancient mother of civilization. They call Mesopotamia often the cradle of civilization. Christmas began there over 4,000 years ago as the festival that renewed the world for another year. The 12 days of Christmas, the bright fires of probably the Yule log, the giving of presents, and the carnivals, and carnivals is connected with a lot of pagan holidays. I'm not going to get into all that at the moment. With their floats and their merrymakings and clownings, clowns, again, Nephilim had allegedly look like clowns, but I think there is actually some validity to this to some extent, um, based off of like McDonald's,
Mm.
people having a phobia of clowns, which can be
Mm.
inherited genetically.
Mhm.
Red
Mhm.
hair, I don't know. I think there's some kind of connections there. Feastings, crowning arounds, and the lights and the song. All these and more began there centuries before Christ was born and were celebrated at the arrival of a new year. Okay, I have a note here. I'm just making sure I want to conclude it if it's necessary. To the Mesopotamians, New Year's was a time of crisis. One, in a very distant time, their chief god Marduk, or Enlil, who is more ancient still than Marduk, had routed the monsters of chaos and had built out of a world without form and void, an orderly world, and had created humankind. But the order remained an uneasy one. It ran down, so to speak, during the year. Toward its close, after the crops had been harvested, the empty brown of the fields told that life was dying. Then Marduk again had to battle with the monsters of chaos, so that death might not become complete. Thus he renewed the world every year. It was a grim battle, fought in the regions below, and every time Marduk almost lost his struggle. It was the duty of man, in his puny ways, to help as well as he could, and much of this festival of the New Year constituted his lowly support of his God. His leader and commander was the king, who held his power and his title by the grace of the god. As the Mesopotamians saw it, in the struggle of the New Year, people faced threefold problem: to purify themselves of the evils that their sins of the past year had brought upon them, to renew the strength that the year had drained away, and, if possible, to find a substitute who could take away the consequences of their sins which they committed. Does that kind of sound a little similar to
Yeah.
Christianity?
Wow.
So, again,
Yeah.
pagan speaking, I don't see much of a difference here. If there's already deities that were doing this prior to Christ, what's the difference? Most of them would probably say, look to yourself. Blah, 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 blah.
Hmm.
Like, these are the arguments that you'll start hearing. And it's over here like,
Hmm.
you know what? At a certain point, I think I agree with you, or I'm doubting myself. Why? Because we don't teach this stuff from pulpits. We don't really know how to find this information, nor do we encourage this with homeschooling and or just getting this material, because it's not that we endorse it. Again, but it's being savvy to it so that we can give an explanation to the others. So saying, yeah, but I actually understand the origins of where these things came from.
Hmm.
And that is a very compelling case, because not only now are you backing up with your religious, you're backing it up with history. Now, whether or not they're going to accept it or not, some people, varying on where they're at, right, when you're sowing seeds, they're going to be
Hmm.
like, I've heard about that before. I've heard about that God. Why? Because I'm a geek in old cultures, but I hadn't heard that particular part before. And then you find that common link and bond, and from there you bring in the gospel. It
Hmm.
helps. It helps. The first and the last problems were solved by the nation of a scapegoat, which is a
Okay.
familiar to us from its form given in the Bible. Among the children of Israel, it was prescribed that on a certain day of the year, 2 goats should be brought before Jehovah's altar. There, the high priest cast lots over them. One was sacrificed, and the other the high priest laid his hands on behalf of all the people, and so to transmit all of their sins upon the head of that goat. This scapegoat was then led away into the wilderness and abandoned to the demon Azazel, who roamed there.
Hmm.
Again, if you're reading some of the stuff in the book of Enoch, Azazel was the guy that taught man how to make weapons of war.
Wow.
Right? Like it's kind of makes you scratch your head. So it's like, okay, so the God that's teaching us how to shed fellow mankind's blood, right, and how to hone tools for this sort of thing, we're now giving him a goat. Interesting that Dumazid, a Sumerian goat shepherd god, Baphomet, might be a little bit more of a familiar thing, a modern equivalent that we're familiar with, that he's affiliated with the goat. And as well, on Judgment Day, we hear about the separating of the sheep from the goats.
Okay.
So again,
Yeah.
this is why, Faith, that when you ask some of those questions in Revelation, I was telling them prior, a lot of that is above my pay grade because I like answering things from an
Hmm.
anthropology perspective, because you get a lot more insights of how to perceive when you're reading very cryptic texts like Revelation. What is
Hmm.
symbolism? What is the culture? What is this, that, and the other thing?
Hmm.
So it's kind of hard for me to answer prophecy-based questions. Um, yeah, because I'm trying to answer it from, how do I define this? Once we understand how the ancient world saw things, we start to understand our present a little bit better, right? Because he who doesn't
Right.
understand his past, he's doomed to repeat it. I think
Right.
that's what they kind of intentionally did with our schools. I think Frank
Mm.
Zappa said it well, is that they teach you just enough so you're smart enough to do the job, but you're too dumb to ask a question. Yeah. And I don't like that because I would prefer that we are all very educated, and if we don't know something, that we literally just turn to somebody and we just, again, it's like a community. I have knowledge, I'll share knowledge with everybody. Somebody else can cook, they cook for everybody. Somebody else can do this,
Right.
they do that for everybody. That is what the community originally was, and especially ecclesia-based community. So when everybody's saying, "Oh, communism," it wasn't necessarily communism with money. It was sometimes just helping somebody. Sometimes it was literally
Hmm.
giving up my property on behalf of the church. Why? Because the money doesn't mean anything as long as we can distribute it with everybody in the body. If Paul needs funds for another mission trips, we're going to help support that, by golly. Like, this was what the incentive was. I'll read her things. I didn't want to make her feel left out. Just a side thought, babe. Wait, okay. Illuminati, the head. Pretty good read. The cult that hijacked the world, Henry Macau. Can you guys read the stuff she writes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So I don't have to read that aloud all the time. Sometimes I'm just trying to catch up because I don't hear
Okay.
any audio. But in the present story, we are concerned rather with what happened in the Babylonian king in this crisis when the world was dying. The New Year's festival lasted 12 days, as our Christmas season is supposed to do. In it, the king repaired to Marduk's temple, to the court of the gods. The chief priest stripped him from his insignia of rank, thus disposed of his power. He knelt before Marduk's image and swore that he had done nothing against the god's will. The chief priest, now speaking for Marduk, said comforting words, and in the name of the god he reinvested into the king, in token that the kingdom was restored to him by the grace of the god. Now, again, understanding ancient stuff, think of this as potentially stuff that would be affiliated with an Antichrist figure. If you're going, I'm trying to get Victor to do a show, Jesuits in Jerusalem, and have Laura Baker explain her stuff with connecting the Jesuits and how they have big ties in Israel as well. I'm trying to play this clip, and if you guys, if it never goes out, type into your YouTube the Hermit of Loretto prophecy. This guy is basically saying back in the 1980s, he put like this gold brick into the vault of the Vatican, and it has a prophecy on it that he alleges that Playboy millionaire Trump is going to be the guy that brings Western world of America back to Christ.
Oh.
Now, coincidentally, this was posted on YouTube in 2015, right before he took office. So, if anything should transpire, they'll be like, well, it was like 12 years ago before he even took office, so it has to be something. But again, I'm just seeing a little bit of like if the god fall or if the king falls, he has to have some kind of redemption arc, right? Oh, he's changed now. So, and again, who are you to judge him? I think that's one thing I've been noticing, whether he is or isn't. An antichrist figure just like Christ. Christ made enemies and he made a lot of friends. Same would be said with an antichrist figure, not necessarily from a spiritual perspective, like you understand what's going on. The antichrist would as well have enemies. Why? Because we all know the difference between good and evil. Now, whether we are submitting that good and how we perceive said good to God, we don't really know, right? A lot of us are still sifting, and I'm saying the world in general. We're trying to understand and define what is good, what is evil. Some are asking that question in the conspiracy realm. Others are looking to New Age, right? Others are looking to transhumanism. Others are looking to other alternatives as opposed to looking to God. Others are saying all this chaos is only leading me to one conclusion, that there's only one way out of this. There has to be a savior figure. Yes, and that is Christ, right?
Amen.
That's what we're supposed to be as Christians. Like, amidst all of this, regardless of what they're doing, we know who is our savior at the end of the day. So, a very important part of the festival was the recitation of the creation epic, the drama that reenacted the creation of the world and its order by Marduk. There was also a darker side to this ceremony. In theory, the king must die at the end of the year. He should then accompany Marduk into the underworld and battle at his side, while a new king took his place on earth. Osiris and Tammuz? But here enters the idea of a substitute or mock king. Now, isn't that kind of like a common trope with Trump? They're constantly calling him a dummy. They're calling him a mock king, a jester king, a clown. A clown? Very similar to Nephilim? Huh. A mock king which saved the life of the real king. Now, who's really tall that stands behind Trump that happens to be one of his kids?
Baron.
And bearing me is the god of the dead. Kind of makes you scratch your head. A criminal, real or fancied, and again, think about Christ's crucifixion, was dressed in the royal garb. He was given all the homage and indulgence that the king's right, while the people about him held celebration. But soon his mock reign was over. He was stripped of his kingly trappings and slain in the place of the real king. See a little bit of a correlation going on there? At last, as the festival went on, came the moment when Marduk began to prevail. The people, who had been supporting and encouraging him in the battle, turned to rejoicing. They joined in processions of masquerades. That's where the term mask came from, and also persona. That's also connecting with masks, person. They draw wagons down the great avenue. They launched regattas on the Euphrates with sham battles that were sometimes very realistic to symbolize the fight of the gods' forces with the dark powers of the deep. There were other deeds in the Europe still repeats during these holidays, although the ancient meanings have been lost. The building of bonfires with a special wooden image of Marduk's opponent is burned, in the custom of exchanging visits and gifts. This was Sagmuk festival. Another, which both Persians and Babylonians celebrated, was called the Sacaea? Sacaea. Yeah, I'm not sure how that's pronounced. At this time, the masters and slaves exchanged places. Again, a lot of Phrygians were known to wear red hats. Phrygian basically means a free man. Charlie Kirk, Charles, free man, Kirk, church, Kirke. That's where that comes from. Yeah, I just found that kind of interesting. Again, slaves, masters, exchanging things. Land of the free, as it were. The masters obeyed. The slaves commanded, the masters obeyed. One slave was chosen to be the head of the household, and everyone paid homage to him. Now, again, when they're always talking about a revolution, what countries are they usually affiliating that with? Like the one that actually managed to do it and pulled it off? America. Okay. And I was doing a little something here today. It's actually in the shower and it hit me. Are you guys familiar with the Between Five Eyes? So there is a intelligence agency collective. It's in Canada, New Zealand, London, and America. I think I got them all. And I was basically holding up my hand. Australia, big continent. New Zealand, London, Canada, America, right underneath Canada. London, right up here. Okay. Well, that's nothing, Brendan. You're making it up. Oh, Between Five Eyes. Well, it's also known as the Little Horn. That could be a pinky in theory, right? Well, you're reaching at things here. Possibly, I don't know. But again, it was making me scratch my head because Turkish guys next door, I'm trying to teach them English, and I walked in one time and they had this little whiteboard, and on it, L was affiliated with hand. It's also, in other cultures, L is always affiliated with God.
Yeah.
But Turkish, that's where Nimrod was from.
Oh, I did not know
And
that.
Five Eyes, I don't know, but again, I'm looking at this going, intelligence, five eyes, all-seeing eye. They want us to use our retina scan to access our money. Monet, mono eye, one eye. And when you fold all those together, Australia, New Zealand, London, Canada, America. So your left hand. Again, left and right hand. I was going into some of the stuff with Freemasonry. Again, it could be wrong. I was just going, some of this stuff hits me and I'm just like, that's really weird, but whatever.
Yeah.
But again, I was thinking little horn, little pinky finger. It's underneath the, I don't know. But as well, when they're talking about the mock trial or whatever, as it were, where the slave is actually commanding, that's kind of what voting is. What? You're our public servant.
Yeah.
No, they're not, because those public servants are passing legislation that if you and I do not abide or adhere to, we will either be imprisoned or fined. So that's not a public servant. That's a masquerading Like
Yeah.
that's not what you think it is. But again, it's the concept of you chose this as I can't remember which it was Andrew, not Andrew Johnson. Johnson, the one that came after Lincoln. I can't remember his first name at the moment. History buffs are going to
Uh,
be so mad at me. I have
I
had a
know.
long week. Forgive me.
Thank you.
Anyways, that guy, he basically once said, "The voice of the people is the voice of God,"
Huh.
citing a Whig tract back from the 1700s, 1700s. I think it was early 1700s. And when I was reading this book, 'cause I think it was a trial of Johnson. I read that and then I paused and I was like, I didn't just read what I thought I read, did I? I read it again. I was like, I do not like this because he's basically implying that whatever the majority says, the people, that is what God's will is.
Oh, yeah.
Now, how often do we see that in history that all of man, a city, for instance, is agreed or aligned with God?
Yeah. No.
And you're telling me that we all collectively know what the will of God is? No, hence why it
All
is
right.
definitely personal and individual, but at the same time, it can be helped nurtured and cultivated, but it is not for all of us to say that we know. Hence is the beauty of discourse and also the come let us reason together. In the
Hmm.
counsel of many, there is wisdom.
Hmm.
To think that you know it or you know. So again, I see something like that and I think of modern equivalents and whatnot. Antiseptic, but he's not naturally a you. But he woke up and realized like, yeah, I'll look into him.
Yeah.
And again, conifer yew tree. Again, I could be wrong, but a yew tree is allegedly where Nimrod shed his blood upon. This is why I don't say the J word. I say the Y word. Why? Again, I know everybody likes arguing this thing, and I really hate it. But if you let's say it was Yeshua, which literally the name means God is deliverance. Um,
Okay.
Joshua, God is deliverance. Again, Christ returns at the sound of trumpets. When we're taking down Jericho, the first city. It fell at what? The sound of trumpets. Again, I could keep going on back and forth, but it literally I'm like, yes, that makes sense. So if Christ's name started with a Y and J didn't come along until later, cool.
Mm.
So what were the Jews called?
Mm.
And again, you can't say like, oh, I'm gonna go to history and Brandon's gonna be proven right exactly. No, some of this I'll admit it's a little bit of a pseudo etymology, but it's based heavily on the Babel thinking. When you're saying jewelry, jewelry, university, United States, you and me. Now we already know the English
Mm.
language is kind of bastardized for us to speak in spells, but you follow what I'm saying? There's a little bit of that. Wait a minute. Are they trying to teach us the tree religion and we don't even realize that we're saying it all the time with just little phrases like that? Universe, you tree. You follow where I'm going? You look a little bit confused.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's the argument to say the J word, not the yeah, the Y.
So,
That
what,
sound.
Juniversity?
No, I mean you're saying that like they're trying to tell you like it's the origins, the Yule origin, right? The
Yeah,
tree.
yeah. But a lot of times they don't talk about that. But again, when you look into the yew tree, you're like, well, this connects with Christmas. And this
Hmm.
is the connecting with the Hermetic Kabbalah tree of life as well. Really helps with censors because it sounds like I'm talking like my cousin Vinny. The two U's.
The
But again, it's just something where it's like,
Utes,
the
yeah,
Utes, the
the Utes.
Utes. I saw that once. I loved it. It was a good
It's
movie.
such a funny
Anyway,
movie.
yeah,
Yeah.
heartwarming. The king's household celebrated on a longer and more intense scale. Naturally, for the king stood for the nation. Two criminals, remember thinking of Christ's crucifixion,
Mm.
who had been condemned to death were selected. One was set free, the other was dressed in royal clothes and constituted the make believe king. The people paid him a mock homage, indulged his every whim. But at last they stripped him and scourged him and led him away to be crucified or hanged or beheaded. I'll take the first option. That's possible, please and thank you. But again, this does track because they're saying the symbolism of the cross probably traces its roots to Mesopotamia. Again, Romans plagiarized it or
Yeah.
appropriated it. As the old year died, the rules of ordinary living were relaxed. Then, as the new year arrived, the order of the world was recaptured. At this time of crisis, when fates hung in the balance, the curtain of the future was drawn slightly aside. If you performed the proper magic, again, maga, you could peer into it and make resolutions to fit coming events. All peoples learned from this tremendous land of Mesopotamia. Everything happening there was, in the course of time, imitated by its neighbors, yet never copied exactly. Thus, the rising sun traveled westward through Greece to Rome, and it changed its face as it went. Was another road, and we only see the beginning to appreciate that road, which led to the Asia Minor through the Balkans, up the Danube Valley into the heart of Europe. The Danubians were not like the Romans. When an idea from the Near East reached them, they fitted it into their scheme of living in their own way. So it was come about repeatedly that one and the same basic idea has penetrated the Northland over the last two different routes, Rome and the Danube. There in the Northern Europe, it has, so to speak, caught up to itself, wearing another guise. This is as true as Christmas as with many other things. Marduk and his court of gods have long disappeared, but to this day in the Balkans and in the Central Europe, on the 12 days of Christmas, uh, troops of masqueraders go about, headed by a fool or a wild man. Also, tropes of carol singers, not unlike those we know from merry old England. As goes the weather of those days, so shall the months of the year. The girls will recite magic verses and perform magical acts to learn who their true loves will be. There are still the bonfires, and a special log which a young man fells and brings home, and over this log a ritual is performed, and on Christmas Eve it is burned in the fireplace. And that concludes that chapter. The interesting thing about masks, if I'm not mistaken, I would have to look that up again. But it's connected with an equivalent of Nimrod, and we were all wearing masks during 2020. I'm just trying to figure out which one it was. Uh, uh, Questions? Dionysus. Dionysus.
Dionysus.
Dionysus. Dion.
Not a
Y.
D.
I-U-S, I think.
Why Dionysus? I'll look. I'll figure it out.
I always think of Dion and the Belmonts when I think Dionysus. I listen to a lot of oldies.
Whatever helps.
All right. So we have time still, or you want me to read one more? It's called O Saturnalia.
Oh, Saturnalia.
Yeah. You want me to read it, or you want me to hold? I'm on your guys' dime here. You're the one supporting the show, so you get to say yes or no. Hold.
I'm good, but I'm on West Coast time. Like the night's still young here, and you guys are all later.
It's midnight.
No, the night is still young. I said.
Oh,
out
yeah,
here.
it's only 10:45 on my time.
I would be like asleep if I was out there.
Honestly,
So,
I
just want to be
insomnia, so
well,
I could go on for ages, but
sorry.
again, I don't want to detain people if they have other plans.
Yeah.
I'm gauging the room here. That was the time to say something or fall out the window later on, like the young man in Paul's story.
I think I'm gonna head out. It is getting a little late for me.
Cool. Thank you for joining, Melissa.
I appreciate your time. Yeah, no, thank you very much. This is very informative. I really appreciate you doing this.
I love it.
Thank you for all your information.
Yeah, no problem.
Cool beans.
Everybody else? All right, catch you later.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye, Melissa.
Everybody good?
I'm
Continue? Stop? What do we got?
Yeah, we're
uh,
probably good for like another 10, 15.
10, 15. So one more
yeah,
chapter
I
and
don't
call it
know.
quits?
Can you read another chapter in that time? Is that okay?
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, it's only,
Okay.
let's see, 36 to 32 to 38. And again, we're talking about this big of a page.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Not too
Sounds good.
long. Not
Okay.
too long. All right, we'll read the Saturnalia one, then we'll call it quitsies. All right.
Saturnalia.
The rising sun went west, over Greece to Rome. In Greece, there was an old god, Kronos, which again, you might be familiar with the KFC scandal with Kronos eating the chicken, but it's supposed to be he ate his own son. Yeah. About whom we know little, even though it is not hard to recognize that the festival of old Sakeia gone westward. The figures in the drama change and the incidents also, but the plot remained. In ancient Babylonia, it was Marduk who conquered the monsters that lived before our world was created. In Greece, it was Zeus who fought and overcame Kronos and his titans. The Romans believed in an ancient god of seed time, Saturn. That's again where we
Mm,
get the all-seeing eye. It's often affiliated with Saturn, the Saturn Awards in Hollywood,
mm,
who ruled over their country's ages before their own day, before he was overthrown by Jupiter. Whenever the Romans thought that one of their gods resembled a Greek god, they concluded that the two were one and the same. Then they took over the forms of the worship the Greeks already had observed, so Kronos had come to Rome. As Sakia entered into the Saturnalia. The first day of the Saturnalia shifted during the lifetime of Rome. At all events, it began around the middle of December with the cry of Oi, Saturnalia, or Ho, Saturnalia. Ho, 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 ha, ha, ha.
mm.
See where that's coming from. And continued until January 1st. In its midst was December 25th, the day, as the Romans calculated, when the sun was at its lowest ebb, ready to increase again and impart its strength to the growing things of the earth. Hard upon this day came the Khalid day of January, January 1st. The word itself has become the name for the Slavic and Baltic peoples used for the days of the Christmas festivities. Kolenda, Kolyada, and Koledos. The Roman Saturnalia and the holidays that followed were boisterous indeed. Judging by what the Christians thought of them, they were often much worse than that. Very possibly the Christians had good reasons for their opinion. Today, however, some scholars are inclined to suspect that the Christians overdid their disapproval. Whatever the behavior of some Romans, others were simply merry. They masqueraded through the streets, ate big dinners, visited their friends, and wished them good luck at the time of tender fortune, and gave each other good luck gifts called strene, and that is Strenae. Originally, these were just lucky fruits. I wonder if that's where the origins of fruit baskets came from. The Romans explained them as coming down from the time of the king Tatius of the Sabines, who, who used to receive branches from a lucky tree located in the grove of the Stranae. Later on, the lucky fruits gave way to lucky cakes and other tokens of well wishing. The halls of the Romans were decked with boughs of laurels and green trees, which lighted candles with lamps, for the hovering spirits of darkness were afraid of light. Now I found that interesting because again, post the flood, that's kind of all you know was darkness. So now you see light.
Mm,
Allegedly, that's something that scares you.
mm,
I don't know.
mm.
Possibly. Masters and
Uh,
slaves ate together on these occasions, and sometimes they exchanged places. The masters waiting on the slaves. Again, kind of interesting with what Christ was doing, as opposed to this one being a mock kind of thing. Christ was doing it out of a genuine spirit, saying, like, I'm not expecting anything back from you. Just let me serve you, right?
right.
The slaves chose one of their number as leader of the household festival and as lord of the revel. All this was harmless enough, but on the frontiers of the Roman Empire, on the Danube River and the Balkans, much closer to the Near East and much further from the influence of the mild south wind, the ancient customs stemming from Mesopotamia or hardly tamed at all. There is a story, quite possibly true, which tells how the Christian soldier, Decius, became a martyr and a saint. Decius belonged to the garrison of Derostorum, which today is Silistra, Bulgaria, not far from where the Danube meets the Black Sea. When the Saturnalia arrived, the soldiers there chose by lot one among their number to be the Saturnine king of the revel. For 30 days they feted him, indulged him in all things, paid him rough and boisterous court. Then, when his 30 days were up, he had to stand at the altar and kill himself. In 303 AD, a lot fell upon Decius, who refused to play the pagan god for the amusement of his heathen comrades. The soldiers argued with him and threatened his life, but Decius would not give in, so they beheaded him. The sarcophagus of Saint Decius repose today in Ancona, Italy. Io Saturnalia. To the pagans, Saturnalia were the fun to the Christians, and Saturnalia was an abomination and homage to the disreputable god who had no existence anyway. The Christians, moreover, were dedicated to the slow, uphill task of converting these rostering pagan Romans. There were many immigrants who into the ranks of the Christians by this time, but the church fathers discovered to their alarm that they were also facing an invasion of pagan customs. The habit of Saturnalia was too strong to be left behind. At first, the church forbade it, but in vain. When a river meets a boulder, that will not be moved. The river flows around it. If the Saturnalia would not be forbidden, let it be tamed. The church fathers now sought to point the festival toward the Christian Son of righteousness, Son God, Son of God, Catholicism. If that could be done, the festival in its turn must of necessity grow worthy of him and celebrated. On this account, some people have thought that the Christians invented Christmas to compete against the pagan celebrations of December 25th, for that day was sacred not only to the pagan Romans, but to the religion from Persia, which in those days was one of the Christianity's strongest rivals. This Persian religion was Mithraism, Mithra being equivalent of Tammuz, and foundations of Freemasonry, whose followers worshipped the sun and celebrated its return to strength on that day. The church finally succeeded in taking the merriment, the greenery, the lights, and the gifts from Saturn, and the giving them to the babe of Bethlehem. Nevertheless, it would be shallow to conclude that this was all merely a clever trick. We must ask rather, what in those days did New Year's and Christmas mean to the Christians? To them, the most important thing that had ever happened in the world was the coming of Christ, his death, and his resurrection. To them, it was all one big event, the beginning of a new era. They celebrated this event during the long interval between the dying of the old year and the birth of a new, and on into the spring, an old habit of centuries, but now richer and different in meaning. But when had Christ's first coming taken place, we need not enter into the elaborate arguments by which the learned churchmen settled upon December 25th. It happened that the date did fall in the midst of Saturnalia, far from being the invention of the to compete against the Roman and Persian paganism. The birthday of Christ ran the danger of being swallowed up in pagan merrymaking. The fathers tried strenuously to keep the Christmas strictly a churchly celebration. It was part of their unremitting struggle to break the grip of the pagan gods upon the people, and they broke the grip after a battle of centuries. The pagan Romans became Christian, but the Saturnalia remained. And that concludes that. All right.
There's so much to unpack there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Boy, I'm really seeing a connection with Christmas, 25th and New Year's Day. Like I've never really connected those before. They're kind of intertwined here.
We used to have practice. A 13-year calendar. It was based off like the tortoise and the dog. Sirius was affiliated with both Hermes. And the tortoise shell was supposed to be representing the 13 months. This is why we actually have 13
Oh,
moon cycles. So
right,
some months will have that peer into two.
right.
America was originally known by the Native Americans as Tortoise Island, or Land of the Feathered
Oh,
Serpent, a phoenix rising from the ashes.
wow.
I find that stuff interesting because, again,
Wow.
it's like, okay, so at the start of the new year is supposed to be March, again, March, singular unit,
Mm,
right? And then you're supposed to start from there, March, April, varying, here and there, a couple dates. I just find it interesting as well. When you add 13 months, I was doing the math. Basically, when you start adding 13 months and you add that basically by your age or whatever it is, you start finding out, wait, I'm a couple of years younger than I actually am officially because they make you older if you go by the 12-month cycle. Whereas if you're going by
mm.
the 13, you're like, hold on a minute. I am 5 years younger than what you have me on my birth certificate.
Ooh.
Something to
Do
that
you,
effect.
okay, to make people think that they're older, and so then they're gonna act
In a sense,
older.
because if you're supposed to be having 13 months and you start adding that by
Yeah.
how old you are currently, but
Oh
then you
my
start going,
gosh.
okay, this is the month I'm missing, this is the month I'm missing, by
Yep.
how old you are, you start
Mm-hmm.
going, wait a minute, I'm not as old as they tell me I am.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Because a lot of
it's
people get that mindset, like, "Oh, I'm old," and
weekend
it
week.
yeah, 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 and it starts to
Good
mess with the
morning. Why am I
subconscious.
mourning? I should be happy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's a brand day. Oh, anyways.
Uh-huh.
So, glad that was insightful. Anything from the Bames?
Very interesting. Yeah, like she said, a lot of information to unpack from all that.
Yeah.
But yeah, especially that last chapter that made a lot of really interesting connections to Mithraism and stuff like that. So that was
Yeah.
interesting to hear.
We might be able to pull off another one like first or second week of December if that works for
That'd
you
be
guys.
great. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd love it.
Because I think it's already have at least 1/3 of the way through. Try to finish
Nice.
it maybe
Yeah.
before Christmas.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. No problem, Faith. I'm glad to be of service. Okay, Missionary, I'm
Let
reading
me
all that.
see how the word of that. Oh yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not so much in prophecy. I'm more of a see this, and then I can pause and be like, this is again because I've read so much. I can kind of highlight. You see this how this looks similar to the crucifixion. You see how this looks similar to
Mm-hmm.
this. So again, it also gives further credence when we start understanding the culture prior to Christ. It's like, well, if they were already doing things like that, and then Christ comes along and does something completely different, but it's still similar to what they were doing prior,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of gives a little bit more credence. Is like, okay, so there's a belief system here that he broke. He conquered the
Mm.
symbol of the cross and brings it before the throne of God as we get over in Hebrews. I think it's Hebrews 12:2. Think, not sure. There is some verse there where that says, but he brings that symbol before the throne of God. So, if he conquers the symbol, represents the world, and he brings it before the throne of God, that tells you all you need to know. So, I'm seeing it when Christians are putting up the symbol of the cross, you're doing no better than what the children of Israel did with the bronze serpent. Over in First, Second Kings, they started worshiping the freaking serpent thing, and they eventually had to destroy it because it was like, no, that was supposed
Mm.
to be saving us in the wilderness, but now you're making an emblem of it, and you're being no better than worshiping a caduceus staff. Get rid of that stupid thing. Like, guys, what? Stop
Yeah.
making it sacred. You're supposed to worship God, and again, if it is there, just remember that God saved us through that. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. Don't worship it. Don't venerate it. Don't. But we complicate it.
Mm-hmm.
So, anything
Wow.
else, Millie? You've been silent.
Um,
Where's your rot Meg?
that was really interesting. Um, the only part I would have to add is if you're okay with it, I would like to plug another podcast in here.
Oh no, I can't have competition.
Or if not, it's just
But
for
no, by all
Renee
means.
for some basic understanding of some of the
Oh,
things that you were
please.
going over today.
Yeah, by all
Yeah.
means. Yeah.
No, I'll put it in the notes here.
As
I'll
long
put it in.
as
Oh,
as long
okay.
oh no, I don't I really don't mind.
No, you're okay with it? Yeah,
As long
because
as it doesn't promote new age, preferably. That's it.
no, definitely not. No, no, no. And so it's a lot of the connections you're making with Tammuz and kind of like the how I've heard it referred to as the dark triads of
Yeah.
each different culture. Um,
Mm.
it's there was a podcast, Caleb and I have both listened to it. It's called Ancient Conspiracies, and it's with a woman named Chastity Johnson. It's on Spotify. And if you she first off starts talking about the Book of Enoch. She explains that, and then she starts going into the ancient cultures and how, each culture had its own trinity that they were impersonating
Ooh.
from the Christian trinity. The Greeks had their father, mother, son. The Romans had a father, mother, son. And the way she explains it all kind of makes it all make a little bit of sense. I know Melissa's listened to this podcast too. The only thing is you have to start on the first episode because she
Okay.
builds the knowledge from there.
Okay. Yeah.
But and faith, love, faith, hope, love. That might be suggestion to you if you want more information on that too. But a lot of the things you were talking about, Brandon, like I've heard them before, and it all connects and makes sense. And so that's just a suggestion for you, Renee, because it makes so much once you understand how that all works. It all makes so much more sense. And then all the connections that Brandon makes, you'll be like, oh, that makes perfect sense to me.
Oh,
And
thank
so,
you.
I didn't want to step on any toes and be like, like that's where all of my knowledge came from. She
Mm.
goes off a lot of Michael Heiser and Gary Wayne are like some of her
Mhm.
biggest references of people that she uses. And so she really helped at least me make the most sense out of all of that and make the connections that are necessary to like understand everything that you were going over today, Brandon.
She
Nice.
sounds really familiar. Again, I'm not too fond of
Chastity.
her
No,
logo.
her logo
Yeah.
is not good. I know.
What
Her
is
She
logo's
it?
doesn't
kind of
like
weird.
it. She doesn't
Yeah.
like it.
Chastity
She's
Johnson.
planning to change it. I know. I know. She doesn't like it. We don't like
Oh,
it. I know. And
Well,
wow.
with the cross, the eye, it like is like
I know
Yeah.
she's got all of
It
those.
makes
when
it
I
look
when I
like
put
a
that up.
hardcore
Makes it look
conspiracy.
like a new age thing. It's not. She's definitely Christian. She's always talking about Jesus. It's not.
Okay.
I promise I wouldn't point you in a weird direction.
Well, it's like, and when I'm doing some of the thumbnails, I'm trying to emphasize the pagan thing, so it's kind of make you want to click on it, going like, okay, that's intriguing. I want to understand and break that
Yeah.
down,
Mm.
not promoting it. Like I had some guy scolding me or whatever, and I'm like, when you look at his, he literally was doing the eye thing and all that. I'm like, you
Yeah.
guys gotta be careful, especially if you think you're
Yeah.
Christians,
Mhm.
because you're going to confuse a lot of people saying it's okay to even joke about it. That's why I'm constantly reiterating, because there's always this, sorry, but there's a lot of individuals that are always like, "Oh, look, you did this XXX thing. I knew it. You're controlled
Mm.
opposition." I had one person said I was wearing a red bracelet. I was like,
Ah.
I don't.
No, I'm not.
Okay, I don't like rings and I don't like bracelets. I have a phobia of those things. I'm not saying like I have a scare of marriage, but again, Saturn rings, that's actually what that connects to. Irregardless, but I just don't like tight things around, it just feels constraining. I don't like that. It doesn't feel natural. So I wouldn't wear a red bracelet anyways.
Funny. Wow.
Anyways, it's just,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well,
All right,
thank you for
folks.
that. Yeah, I'll look that up. Thank you, man.
Anything else from Faith? I just want to make sure we're getting everybody. I don't want to. Here's a link for where they can explain the word translation into Hebrew. Nice short Hebrew translation on the opening of Genesis. Good night, everyone. Good night to you too, Faith. I'm good, thank you. Okay. I feel like we're doing one of those movies from the 80s where we're talking to the computer thing going, oh. Sorry, I'm having fun with this. All right. Well, I'll catch you guys all in the next one.
Oh,
Like I said, maybe 2 to 3 weeks out, if that works for you guys.
yeah.
Yeah.
That would be great.
I don't plan for holidays. I might. I mean, like I said, I'm only going over there for the food because free food. Like that's
Yeah.
food is food. I don't really care about the holiday.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
literally there, and they're always asking. Like I remember, I'll shut up after this. I remember they were after Trump's election of 24. The mom of the place that I go over there for the holiday. She's like, "Congratulations!" I'm like, "On what?" "For the election results." I'm like,
Oh,
"Vote, huh?" Like, I thought you were one of us. I'm like, no, it's funny because liberals think I'm one of them too. It's like that's the beauty of being a Christian is I'm humane.
yeah. That's right. Yeah.
All right, folks. Well, thanks for tuning
Okay.
in. For everybody who's listening, this is the Manna Daily Podcast. You can find us Spotify, Rumble, and YouTube. And if you can, like these lovely individuals who are keeping this going and on the air, you can find me on Patreon, Manna Daily Podcast. And if you can customize it. $3, $5 goes a long way. That's like $1.20 per week for the whole year. That's like $60, I think. Whole year. I mean, that's cheaper than Netflix. So if you can, cool. If you can't, as I say, tier one is always prayer. And until the next time, I will catch you all on the next one.